Adobe Premiere Basics. For this tutorial, you will be learning the basics of how the layout of Adobe Premiere works and how you can customize the workspace. First, let's start by opening up Adobe Premiere. Once Adobe Premiere is open, you will see a screen similar to what you're seeing on this video. There are multiple different options that you can choose from. You can either create a new project or open a previously used project. Let's go ahead and create a new project. You're going to choose a new project option, and then you're going to title this whatever you would like. I would suggest whatever your video project is. So for this one, we're going to name it Adobe Premiere Basics. First, we're going to talk about the multiple different windows that you can have within Adobe Premiere. There are 4 main windows that you can see whenever you open Adobe Premiere. The window over here on the top left is your source and effect controls window, along with an audio clip mixer. On the right is your program monitor. This is where you will watch your sequence in real time. On the bottom left is your project window, and this is where you can actually import any of your footage that you're needing for this project, and you can also add more effects onto your videos. On the bottom center in the right hand corner is your timeline window. This is where you will create a new sequence and also add on to your video project. So now we're going to talk about how you can change the layout of Adobe Premiere. You can literally click and drag the windows wherever you would like. For example, you can take your effects control at the top left and move it to a new window space, so that way effect controls and source are 2 separate windows. So watch as I do this. I am going to left click effect controls and drag, as you can see here, to the left side, and now they are 2 separate windows. I'm going to do the same with the audio clip mixer here, so that way I can monitor the audio throughout the whole video. I'm going to click here so that way my source monitor is nice and shown so I can see everything throughout the whole project. You can also adjust the size of the windows so that way you can actually see what's happening within each window. Next, we're going to talk about importing your footage. There are 2 ways to do it. You can go up to File on the top and then Import, and you can import your videos through Adobe Premiere this way. I'm just going to import one random video so that way you can see what is happening. In the bottom left, you can now tell that the video has been imported. The second way of importing is to go to your project window that is highlighted over here and double left click, and then you can choose a video you're wanting to import. Now we're going to create a new sequence. To do this, let's go ahead and bring in the video from our project window. You're going to left click and drag over to your timeline window. This will create a sequence with the same settings as your video. You want to be careful whenever you just click and drag a video onto your timeline, because then you create a sequence with sequence settings similar to your video you just imported onto your timeline. This is okay, but you will run into some issues sometimes, however. The reason for this is because if you import a video with 60 frames per second as the original video on the timeline, and the sequence settings are created off of that video, then the sequence will be 60 frames per second, just like the original video. You want to make sure your sequence settings are similar to your final project video. The second way of creating a sequence is if you go to File at the very top, New, Sequence. There are multiple different sequence options to choose from. For the purposes of this video, we're going to choose ABC HD 1080p 30 frames per second. You're going to want to name the sequence whatever you would like. I would recommend again using the same name as your video project. The next thing you're going to want to do is click and drag your video onto the timeline. The next thing I will show you is your effect controls. So I'm going to go ahead and double click the video we imported onto the timeline, and as you can see in the top left, your effect controls suddenly highlights it with a bunch of different numbers. There are multiple different things that you can change within your effect controls of a video. I'm going to go ahead and just scroll through a few seconds so that way you can see part of the video. Now if you go to the top left of your effects control, the position under motion is literally just an X and Y coordinate. You can move either right or left of whatever your video is. As you can see in the top right corner of the program monitor, I'm moving the video right and left. However you would need to, this is how you would do this. You can either scale your video to make it bigger or smaller, depending on what you're needing for your video. You can also left click and type in a number and hit enter, and that will apply your number to the video. You can also add rotation onto your video. You can also change the opacity, which means that you're making the video more transparent. Now that you know where Effect Controls is, I'm going to show you how to add effects to the video, which you will find in the bottom left of your project window. If you do not see effects within your project window on the bottom left, go ahead and hit the two arrows pointing to the right. This will show more hidden options within this window. Go ahead and click Effects. There are 6 folders within the Effects window. You can choose any type of effect you are needing for your video. Go ahead and play around with these effects and add them onto your video on the timeline. I'm going to go ahead and add a horizontal flip onto this video. As you can see, the video has now changed on your program monitor. Now you should go to your effect controls on the top left window, scroll down, and find the effect you just chose. There are multiple different ways of playing around with this. You can toggle the effect on or off by hitting the little switch FX right next to your effect. If you look at the program window now, you can tell whether the effect was applied or not. Once you've learned all the basics to Adobe Premiere and learned how to lay out all your windows, you will be able to start editing all your videos like a professional.